My name is Paco Lebron. I want to welcome you here to our MSP Owners Group webinar that we have for this year. As you have been tuning in, we have been doing quite a few of these for the past 6 months to try and drive to you, our clientele, our prospects, those in the industry doing the great things for our small businesses and medium-sized businesses and what we need to help drive for you on your technology needs. I'm here joined by my partner in crime, my good friend, Mr. Chris Cool over at Technology Group. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good morning, everybody. Doing well. Thank you, Paco. We're super excited to have be led by this illustrious group here, Paco, and behind the scenes, Adam Nelson, and our incredible provider that's going to be presenting today. So, thank you to everybody for coming. It's going to be a good session.
Awesome. So for those that may not know, again, me and Chris belong to an organization called the MSP Owners Group. And again, we're here to help those that are in attendance drive your success in your business, whether you are a solo, nimble, small business, or you're leading a team for the journey. We want to make sure that we're here for you to drive those change. And specifically for this webinar, we're going to be going into hard hats and high tech. And what does that specifically mean? We have been able to partner with a great gentleman, founder over at Wave 4, John Bush, and we're going to talk specifically in regards to AI, right? We're going to talk about how you as the construction leader have your blueprint to automating operations and mitigating that risk. So I want to go ahead and bring on John here, and we will go ahead and give him the floor. John, it is all yours.
Awesome, Chris, Paco, thank you for having me. Excited to speak to you guys all today. So today we're going to be doing hard hats and high tech. This is going to be all about AI and construction. So let's just go ahead and kick this off. So a little bit about a background about myself. So I come from a background of enterprise cybersecurity consulting. We did security tool implementation for oil and gas. It was the PM for a major project for a casino. I've also done R&D security testing for Microsoft. I'm also the founder of Wave 4, which is an AI transformation partner where we help businesses identify and implement the best ways to use AI in their business. We've worked with over 14 different industries, over 25 different businesses, as well as doing an AI cyber maturity assessment for Gartner. So we've done a little bit of everything in the AI space. And today is going to be all about sharing some of those findings and how it applies to you directly as a construction company. So let's just go ahead and get started here, which is the last 6 months have really changed everything, I would say, when it comes to AI, right? AI moves at this pace that we've really never seen before with any other technology. I mean, take it from me as someone who does this all the time, every day for clients. Even I struggle to keep pace with where we're going and how quickly things are evolving. One of the big things of this year is AI agents are now a real thing. We're going to talk about that and what that actually means and how we can apply that. But the point I want to emphasize that we'll kind of go through today is that you're now leaving measurable productivity gains on the table if you're not using and leveraging these tools and this technology inside of your business. And this is really an issue for you now. This is no longer something I think that is you can continue to push off. There's too many good tools and opportunities in your business to leverage this. And you need to kind of get on the train now because, like I said, it just continues to move at this pace that we've never really seen before. This isn't going to be a history lesson, but I do think it's important to talk about the last 6 months of AI. One of the interesting and funny parts about doing these presentations is that by the time that you finalize the slides, usually they're invalidated because there's already something new that comes out that makes this timeline slightly outdated. And that's already the case, right? We've already had multiple releases in June, but I kind of want to call out the landscape here of things that are worth noting and how it kind of is relevant. The first one is that in January, we had this OpenClaw tool. This is really what kicked off the AI agent sort of revolution that we've had this year. And because of that, we've had other companies, open source, follow suit with all these amazing AI agent tools that we can now use and deploy in our business, like Hermes Agent. There's Perplexity Computer in February. The other one that I want to call out is in April of 2026 is when we got this Opus 4.7 from Anthropic and then this Mythos announcement as well. For those who are using AI, you probably had access to that Fable model that was taken down by Anthropic last week. The point I want to make with this is that we're now reaching this level of capability where these things are so good at being able to build, being able to help, being able to understand your business. And I think this kind of just shows this relentless release pace that we've had it's less about any one model or release in particular, but really just trying to emphasize the pace at which this is going here. And where now we find ourselves in June of 2026 with all of these amazing agents and tools that we have to leverage inside of our business. So again, this is not going to be a total financial lesson here, but I think this is also worth calling out. So what you're looking at, this is the IGV, or the iShares Expanded Tech Software ETF. Basically what this does is this tracks all of the major software companies outside of the Mag 7. And what you can see is, if you look at the value of this, it has absolutely plummeted since the fall of last year. The reason I show this is that AI is really eating everything right now. You can see those two stats, right? Almost 70% of all VC dollars are now going to AI companies, and SaaS without AI is really struggling to find funding right now. The takeaway you should have from this is this opens up this whole door of possibility to like building your own tools, getting rid of old software that you're probably overpaying for, and kind of this new landscape. Whereas before we talk about the build versus buy decision, this has now very much shifted towards a much healthier middle ground. There's certainly and will continue to be software tools that are worth paying for. But the point I want to emphasize here is that build decision has now opened internally, which is really exciting to have this opportunity to build custom tools for your business. We talked about agents. What does an AI agent actually mean? It's three things. It's LLMs plus tools plus context. So the LLM, that's the brain. So you can think of this as Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, maybe open source, but it's the model, the brain that's powering it. Tools, that's like the harness or what it can use. So this is connecting it to, let's say, your email, your CRM, your file system on your computer. And then context. This is giving it knowledge about what it's doing. So in a business setting, this would be educating the agent about, hey, here's my construction business. Here's like the number of employees I have. Here's the type of work that I do. Basically refining it and educating it about how you do things so that it's more useful. When you combine these three things together, you get AI agents. And really what an AI agent is this is an AI tool that can go out and get work done for you rather than one that you just talk with, like many of us are probably used to in like a browser medium. Some examples of that are OpenClaw, Perplexity Computer, and Claude Code for those who are interested in kind of checking some of that out. We're going to talk more about this later as well, but those are some practical examples of what AI agents are here in 2026. This is something I want to emphasize as well here, which is you actually have more access to cutting edge AI than most enterprises. A problem when I used to work in the enterprise, or anyone who comes from an enterprise background will understand, is that the size and scale and complexity of these organizations makes implementing change very, very difficult and slow. And because of that, they're locked into legacy systems, long procurement cycles. And this is a big advantage when it comes to AI. I showed you guys that timeline for making the point of that this is a field that essentially reinvents itself every 45 days. So your ability to pick up and put down new tools is a huge advantage when it comes to AI, particularly in an industry like construction. We've worked with clients who are in very, very regulated industries where maybe they are smaller, but because of cyber liability, legal reasons, they don't have the ability to use some of these tools. I think an exciting part about, working with construction is that you really can use anything that you want. And that means you can use the most powerful tools and have this ability of that last point where you can move faster than companies that are 100x your size. So I say this to be really, really empowering, is that it's a really, really exciting time to be a smaller, even if you're not small by headcount, but a non-enterprise, because you have the ability to use all of these incredible and amazing tools at your fingertips. So now let's actually talk about practically where can we use AI in your business, right? So one of the things we've seen with working with clients is there's kind of three areas where AI, regardless of industry, is going to be applicable. And that's going to be sales and marketing, automating processes, and adding new capabilities. We're going to talk more about sales and marketing. This one makes a lot of sense, right? If we're going to use AI in our business, we want it to have us help contribute to driving revenue in some way. And really, there's a lot of opportunities to do more marketing volume, better qualify leads. We're going to talk more about that. But this is one that we see across industries that is always a strong use case for bringing AI into it because it's going to help us drive dollars, right? Second is process automation. Almost every business that we've worked with has manual processes that, because of how good the tools are now, like these are prime opportunities for things that should be automated. And you're, again, kind of leaving gains on the table by not doing that. So using some workflow automation tools, using agents to do a process for you instead of having a person do it. But again, there's probably plenty of processes we see this across all industries where there are things that you're probably spending time on that are very low leverage and are things that we should automate so that we can focus on those higher leverage tasks. The third is going to be new capabilities. So I'm sure all of you have had ideas of, hey, I want to do this, some sort of technology initiative with your business, but because of either cost or priority, these things get pushed down the line. One of the biggest things that we do with clients with AI that I think is very undervalued is just accomplishing traditional technology objectives just dramatically faster. So maybe you had some tool that you've wanted to implement. Well, now you could build it with AI in a lot shorter amount of time. Or you have like an old file system that you've been trying to clean up and organize. Well, now you can use AI to do that for you. So this is another area where, again, it's not necessarily us reinventing the wheel with AI, but it's allowing us to add these new capabilities that maybe we've been trying to do, but we couldn't have done before. The flip side of that is AI allows us to take these bigger swings and add things to our business that we would have never even thought of, because maybe from a feasibility perspective, this was something that would have cost some crazy amount of money. But now with some of these tools, we can do this in-house and actually have these new features and ability to do more in our business. So again, these are universal. We see this across all industries as thinking of these three. We're going to dive more in a second about construction specifically, but I lay this on the table as you think about like, hey, where do I think AI can actually help me in my business that's actually going to lead to those measurable results? These are kind of the three areas that I would think about as you kind of work through it. So as I said, we've worked with over 25 different businesses with AI, doing everything from training, consulting them, building and implementing solutions, AI agents. These are the 4 reasons why we see businesses struggle with AI. So if you've been trying this and you're not getting the results that you want, you're not alone. We see this pretty ubiquitously across clients. The first is no strategy. We often see this idea of that we need to use AI in our business, but that doesn't really mean anything, right? It's what are the problems in your business? What are you trying to solve? What are your goals, right? And you need to use AI aligning to that. Oftentimes we just see business owners just basically slapping AI onto their business without a strategy. And then inevitably that leads to very, very poor results because there was no thought up front about, hey, how can this actually help us? What are we trying to do as a business? Where are we trying to go? So strategy is very important. Number 2 is not training employees, right? This is another thing we see a lot with clients, right? Is they go and let's say they buy like a Claude license for all of their employees. They give it to everyone, and then a month later, nothing's changed. The example that we like to use for this is AI is like a bicycle. You know, if you just give an employee a bicycle, if they've never ridden a bike before, like no wonder they don't know what to do with it, right? They have to, put training wheels on. They have to learn how to balance on the bike. They have to learn how to change a tire. And you think of ROI, like quick wins for your business, this is one of the quickest wins you can do is either doing this yourself or spending or investing in AI training, because your employees, they know the business super well. They know the ins and outs, but even if you give them the tools, they don't have the skills to act on it. So we see this a lot of when you don't train your employees and you start to roll out AI, you don't really get the results you want because these are probably the people who are going to benefit the most from being able to leverage it and really make stuff happen in your organization. Number 3 is the knowledge gap. I mentioned this, right? We do this every day for clients. And even I struggle to keep up with all of the new tools, the new models, the new capabilities that are coming out. So it's unrealistic to expect as a business, you have a full-time responsibilities working on your projects, your clients, that you're just going to have time to learn about all of this stuff. And this knowledge gap creates a lot of problems in terms of like poor assumptions, not understanding what's possible, maybe usually a combination of both. But this lack of knowledge we see often hurts a lot of businesses because they might march down the wrong path because they don't necessarily know everything that one would have kept them out of that in the first place, or had they known about a tool or capability up front, they probably could have avoided a lot of headache downstream from that. And number 4 is the lack of in-house expertise. We've worked with AI startups. We've worked, for example, right now, we're working with an organization that has over 30 developers on their team. And the reason that they would bring someone like us in is that even among technical people, we see that there is still a gap in terms of AI knowledge and skills. And it's kind of for that same reason of number 3. It's that even technical people, right, they have, let's say, tickets to respond to, or they have full-time responsibilities, projects that they're working on, meetings to be in. Again, it's unrealistic to expect that they're going to spend every waking hour outside of that learning and getting better at AI. And because they're not developing that capability in-house, it kind of all fits together in this, making it really, really hard to be able to get results and actually get measurable outcomes with these things. So if there's one takeaway that I want you to take from this slide is that don't feel badly if you're struggling with AI. It's probably because both you and your team just doesn't know enough about all of this to be able to get the type of results that you're looking for. So I want to drill more into sales and marketing. Again, you see that here. It is a repeatable AI opportunity we see across almost every business. And that is for good reason, right? Because we talk about if we're going to use AI, we want it to contribute to business outcomes, right? That's why we're bringing it here. And sales and marketing to help us drive more dollars make for a really, really good opportunity to do that. So it kind of looks like 4 things. So one is being able to find more of whatever you're looking for, whether that's more markets that you want to break into, more accounts, finding more leads, looking for opportunities to get in front of prospects, can really just boost your ability to do that on the sales side. And then on the marketing side, right, it just allows us to get more knowledge about like our ICP, be able to drill down more into that, learn more about them, just get more information as it relates to our sales and marketing processes, collecting more data about the results, all of those things. Number 2, this is probably one of the most underrated ones, is qualifying better. If you understand the type of businesses you're trying to work with, the type of projects, all of these things, using this as a tool to qualify opportunities better is going to help you a lot get in front of those real slam dunk projects that are going to be really, really valuable for your business, and also help you stay away from the stuff that's really not a good fit. One of the things we've seen with doing automated lead qualification for clients, regardless of industry, is that we've probably all had that scenario, myself included, where you get an opportunity that's probably a little bit outside of your bread and butter, but you're like, oh, it seems pretty juicy, like there could be some good revenue or something here. Really, this can just serve as a reinforcement mechanism to say, no, don't do it. Like, let's just focus on our core, what we do well, and just keeping you out of trouble for those kind of like tangent projects that can lead you down a rabbit hole and maybe aren't the best use of your time. Number 3, this is probably one is super, super useful for both, is increasing volume, whether that's really with marketing. We've seen this over and over. If you have a marketing department or a marketing person, getting them the right tools, it allows them to do 2, 5, 10x the volume of marketing output than they were able to do previously. So just doing way more, pushing way more out there. The same applies on the sales side, whether it's doing automated outreach, right? Being able to qualify more at scale, whatever your bottlenecks are in sales and marketing from a volume perspective, AI represents a great opportunity to be able to really take that to the next level, to ultimately get more prospects, get more customers, just as a result of doing all the same thing you're doing, just at more scale. Number 4 is speed to lead. We all know in sales, like speed is the name of the game. The faster we can, get in front of the prospect, close the prospect, that's always going to help us. So if you have inquiry forms, automating the responses to that, any type of process, whether we're going to talk about quoting and estimating in a sec, but anything we can do to shorten the sales cycle, be able to get in front of our prospects faster, respond to them faster. These are all great opportunities where a lot of the tools are going to be super, super helpful. So again, sales and marketing, the reason I bring this up is that it is pretty universal across almost every business that we work with. And obviously we're always trying to grow. We're trying to get more sales, trying to get in front of more people. And so this is always a good opportunity of saying, hey, where should I start with some of this AI stuff? So let's talk about construction specifically. So what we've seen from working with our construction client. The first one is automated estimating. This is one of the things that we're going to talk through the case study here in a second, but this is one that is probably a big opportunity. Is if you're spending a lot of time putting together quotes and estimates for prospects, this is a prime opportunity, not to automate this end to end, but to do this in a dramatically shorter amount of time so you can get more quotes and estimates out the door. This might be something that's actually a bottleneck in your business right now, where you're not able to get things fast enough. You're not able to get your quotes and estimates fast enough because you're beholden to the speed at which your estimators are able to put these things together. The second is this field office sync, right? So really getting more real-time visibility into the job site, into the project, seeing what's happening every day, collecting more data, and then also transferring that seamlessly outside of the job site so that so whether it's the PM, whether it's the business owner, people in the back office, that people actually know what's happening in real time, as opposed to this kind of delayed telephone game that we often see with some of these projects. Next is going to be project management, right? We're going to talk about the PM and how AI can really help them. But what AI allows the project management is both from making it more AI native, using AI to help us do more intelligent scheduling, being able to identify opportunities, when we should do things, following up with people, whether it's vendors. It's really just helping accelerate and get on top of the project management process, which I think is always going to be useful for just being able to prevent whatever fires come up down the line. And then when they do come up, we'll talk about that, being able to get on top of them more quickly. Inventory and materials. This is kind of an interesting one that we've been doing with our construction client. Obviously in construction, as you guys know, the price of raw materials can fluctuate greatly. So you can use some of these tools to be a little bit more predictive and more intelligent about, hey, is this a good time? Is this a good time to buy? Like, is this a good price? Should I be holding more inventory? Things like that. So using AI as a way to think about that inventory decision and materials decisions more strategically. Then there's the predictive risk. We're going to talk about risk more specifically, whether it's documentation, safety issues on the job site, potential identifying opportunities for delays before they come out, gaps with closeouts. There's going to be a way to basically better model risk using a lot of these tools, is what we've seen. And this is a really good opportunity, because some of these things can cause either delays, change orders. In a case of a safety incident, like being able to prevent those things is always going to be of the highest priority. And then finally, this is probably the most obvious, but like just cutting admin work. Your people are probably spending too much time on deliverables. They're probably spending too much time on their email. They're probably spending too much time in the CRM, right? They're sending updates to homeowners or whoever's in charge of the project. They have to do all this routine documentation. Again, this is one of the most slam dunk things, is using AI to just accelerate and take a lot of the stuff off their plate so that your people on your team can focus on the project, on the work that actually matters. So we talked about the PM. In our experience working with our construction client, is that the PM is the best place to start, and making them, upskilling and investing in them in terms of AI. This is one of the highest leverage activities for the business. As you guys know, the PM is constantly battling between, they have all this admin work. They got to be managing the project. They're in and out of the office on the site. AI allows that to really give the PM a better handle on everything, help really take a lot of that admin work off their plate so that they're not beholden to that, being able to give the PMs better insight into what's happening on all of the sites. And that creates leverage for them so that they can spend their time either basically mitigating risks and potential issues before they come up, or when those things come up, they can know about it faster so they can get a better handle on it. So if you think about, hey, who's maybe the person we want to make one of our AI superstars in our organization, the PM in our experience is a great place to start there. Next, let's talk about like risk, safety, and field documentation. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like again, if it's paperwork in any form, that makes it a prime opportunity to have AI be able to come in and help you. So if you have like compliance documentation, permits, certifications, requirement documentation, you got to finish, before the end of a project. If you're having people spend time on this, like it's probably pretty low leverage. This is a great opportunity to bring AI and have it do it for us. Next is safety and field reports. One of the things that we've done with our construction client is just having them automate basically the daily reports and safety checks that they have to do. Again, it's very minor, but something as simple, someone forgets to do that one day and then there's an incident, that's a huge problem. So by automating it and ensuring it happens every single day is just from a peace of mind and a consistency perspective is going to be super, super valuable. The real-time visibility, this is probably the biggest one, is that one, by having better insight into what's happening on your jobs, on your projects with more data, you can figure out, hey, if there's going to be an issue earlier so that you can mitigate it earlier to stay on track. And then also, if there is an issue that comes up, you know about it much more quickly so that you can mitigate it, right? So the idea is being able to use this as a way to keep us on schedule better. And then finally is this kind of risk summary element, which kind of ties into number 3, but like maybe there's some unintended blockers, right? This is kind of where it ties in with like the inventory and the materials and your labor, the AI powered project management. Maybe you're missing a documentation. There's like a liability that you need to close. Maybe there's a gap of who's owning a certain part of the project. So being able to identify these potential risks that could lead to delays or change orders and identifying those up in front, and as well as potential safety issues, these are all going to be super, super valuable to us and making sure that we're, getting work done on time and safely. So let's talk about our construction client and kind of walking through the process that we've done with them to kind of paint the picture of what this looks like. So when we started with them, we did an AI assessment. Basically what this is going into the business, looking at people, processes, technology, really understanding this construction company inside and out. For context, what this company does is they do like HOA remodeling. So, HOA comes and hires them to, let's say, repaint all of the balconies in an HOA, or actually rebuild the balconies. And then they do also painting and waterproofing as well for these HOA communities. So after you do the assessment, you basically figure out, hey, what are the problems in the business? What is the business trying to work towards? And how can we use AI and automation as tools to help, align with that? In this case, their goal was, hey, we want to scale. We want to double our revenue, right? But also at the same time, for them, they want to make sure, are we maintaining quality? For any of you, something that I've learned through working with them or working through the HOAs is you have to be able to navigate that relationship. So it was really doing whatever, hey, how can we streamline, get more insight into what's going on, but also using this as a tool to scale. So what did we find, right? It led to 3 things. The first was automated estimating. I mean, this was the thing after doing the assessment was they were losing out on opportunities because they couldn't get quotes and estimates outside the door, like out of the door fast enough, right? So they were losing dollars because they couldn't do this. And quoting and estimating for them was very, very manual process. And so being able to use AI tools and build them, a custom estimating tool, that was something that accelerated their ability to get these out the door. And that no longer became the blocker for their estimating team. The second part that's kind of tied into doing that is doing a custom CRM. So doing a custom CRM, this is something that's absolutely feasible now in June of 2026, whereas maybe even 6 months ago, I would have said like, no, this isn't a good use case. The reason we did a custom CRM is one of their problems why their estimates were so slow is that there was this information disconnect between their sales team and their estimators. And so one of the reasons this was such a slow process is their teams were going back and forth. The estimator saying, hey, can you get me this? Or I need this piece of information. Or the sales team is like kind of pitching the project one way versus like what it actually is going to look like after they do their due diligence. So by doing a custom CRM, it did 2 things. It helped them better sync up so that everyone's going to one place, one system. So they don't have to ask for the estimators don't have to ask for all this stuff. And the salespeople just put the things that they have directly in here. And in this case, also was a big cost saver, right? They were spending a lot on HubSpot and it wasn't something that they probably needed. They didn't need all of the features offered. And so it was kind of a win-win, right? It was a better tool for cheaper in that case. Then the third is training, right? That was an immediate opportunity that we saw, as they had some people in their organization who were AI curious, but really didn't know what to do. So this was part of what I talked about, making the PM more AI native, identifying champions on the team to upskill them, and then making sure that, hey, as we roll these tools out, let's sure we're investing in our people. And so as a result, we're having HR and accounting use these tools to do all of their work faster, getting the PMs more AI native so that they can manage more projects and stay on top of things better. And as a result of doing all of this, there were really two outcomes, right? The first was increased capacity, right? For a business like construction, it's not a situation where you obviously, as you scale, you're going to need more crews, more people in the field, right, to actually do the work. But in terms of your back office and your admin staff, like, that is absolutely feasible to use this as a way to scale without adding headcount in that case. So for them, it was basically able to increase their capacity as a result of this, because they had better handles on their projects, and they were doing the quoting and estimating much faster. And the second of this was fewer change orders, because they had better insight into all of these projects. Some of these preventable fires by being able to identify those earlier to help keep the project, get whatever materials, whether it's getting more people on the site, being able to figure that out faster to lead to less change orders down the line, right? Does that mean that we can eliminate all change orders? Obviously not. In a field like this, there's just inevitable things that happen and come up. But if we can mitigate some of those mistakes that are often as a result of maybe not getting the knowledge or information fast enough, that was a big win for them, was really helping cut down on the number of change orders from things just as a result of getting better data and information fed to everyone. So as we kind of think about the takeaways from working with a construction client, I kind of want to surface these 6 things for you guys to think about, which is this information decay across departments. This was something that we saw with them that's probably something similar to what you're seeing, which is basically your different departments. And I mentioned that example of sales and estimating. They might not be on the same page. And this is an example of using AI and automation to sync up the data and information that everyone has is going to be a big win downstream of that, to making sure everyone has the same information and is acting on the same assumptions so that we don't have any issues downstream of that. The second one is legacy technology gaps, right? Just having, whether it's old hardware, old software, there's so many incredible, amazing software tools outside of AI on top of all of the AI tools. And so there's just a lot of gaps that we've seen with construction companies that this makes it a good opportunity to really become more AI native and just kind of skip over a lot of these, systems that we've had the last few years. The third is going to be the real-time visibility. I've been harping on this a lot, but just being able to know what's happening in real time versus having a delayed flow of information is one of the biggest advantages that AI has, brought to our construction client. And then quoting and estimating. I'm willing to bet as you guys listen to this, you're probably thinking about how you do your quotes and estimates now. You could probably be doing those dramatically faster to be able to get more of them out the door. I think the way to think about the quoting and estimating use case is it's not like we're just fully automating that process end to end, but if we could do a quote or an estimate in 10% of the time that it takes us now, that is probably a huge win just in terms of velocity and the number that we can get out the door. And that's what we've seen with doing that use case. I've mentioned training a lot, but this is something, the highest ROI thing you can probably do for your organization, regardless of construction or any industry, is investing in your people and upskilling them on AI, right? I mentioned is that your people, your employees, your teams, they know the business inside and out. And so they really, really understand what are the opportunities and issues and things that we need to fix, but they don't have maybe the tools or capabilities to act on it. And so this is why the training becomes so important. And then finally, AI is a scaling lever. That's one of the things you should think of this as leverage, the same way that people or capital is leverage. AI is kind of this new form of leverage that exists that allows us, as I said, in the case of our construction client, of being able to go further, take on more capacity, more projects without having to grow that, let's say, admin or back office headcount. And so the last thing I kind of want to, mention here is that at this point in 2026, if your business has work that you're doing on a computer, AI should be helping or doing it for you. The bottleneck here is no longer the tools. Particularly in the last 6 months, the tools have shaped up to be like absolutely incredible, and they continue to get better almost every single week. And so if you're not leveraging these things, as I said, you're leaving measurable productivity gains on the table. And so even in an industry like construction, right, where there is much more of a physical in-person element, that doesn't mean that there still aren't massive opportunities to really leverage this to help your business, which is kind of what I've been trying to illustrate today. So that's everything that I have for you today. And I wanted to leave some time for questions as well. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. And then I'll kind of open the floor up for questions here.
No, I appreciate you going over there, John. I think there's a lot of great pieces to that, right? And really communicating to obviously not only the adoption of AI, but being able to scale it as well. One of the questions that, for me personally, and I've been running through this with some of our clients is, how, and it's the phrase, right? Garbage in, garbage out. AI will only operate off of the data that it can pull and talk to, or what you can feed it. How clean or mature does your data need to be before an organization or a construction industry organization to start their AI objectives or initiatives?
I think it's super important. We see that with a lot of industries, right? Where one of the things where AI can really help you is helping with that data cleansing, data cleaning, data quality process. But it is a foundational element, as you said, garbage in, garbage out. We see that all the time with clients where we'll show up and they're not getting the results or output that you want. But then we go ahead and look at the inputs, and it's a SharePoint, right? With no organization, no file structure, no rhyme or reason of any kind. And then we're surprised that we're not like getting these super precise, detailed. In a lot of cases, the biggest advantage of having clean data when it comes to AI is it's going to save you on cost, because these tools are good enough. They'll find what you're looking for, but you're really making it a lot harder for them if you don't have the good data up front that makes it easy for them to access.
No, that makes sense.
Hey, John, I have a question. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thanks for being right to the point. There's a lot to it, right? And our whole goal as MSPs and service providers is to serve our clients. What does it look like? A lot of my clients, one in particular in Louisiana, awesome construction company, they said, look, I understand all of this. I just want to learn how to use it, right? I want to figure out what it is. And I thought this was a great platform. So when you talk about the IT assessment, what does that look like? I know from a ballpark, is there cost associated? How do you justify it? Return on investment, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the reason that we start with assessments for clients is the metaphor that I'll give for this is the same way that when you go to the doctor is not going to prescribe you any medication until they understand what your symptoms are. And we use the same diagnostic approach. So what the assessment really is I said, it's people, processes, technology. So technology, that's like, hey, what are all of the tools, the software that you're using? And then people and processes, the meat and potatoes, that is doing interviews. And that's everyone from the business owner all the way down, in like the case of the construction client, to, foremen, people working in the field. You want to cover everything. And the reason the assessment is so important is it helps you get clarity around like, what are the best use cases? What are the things that are quick wins that I should do right now versus also the thing that's challenging about AI, since it evolves so quickly, you also need to be thinking about like, what are these big swings that like, maybe it's not feasible today, but would be a big boost for me. Well, guess what? In 30 days or in 2 months, you could wake up and that use case could now be a slam dunk. So the reason the assessment is so important is it helps you kind of align to this like crazy progress of AI to understand like, what is the stuff that's worth my time versus not worth my time? So that way, regardless of when you get opportunities for vendors or to integrate tools or any of this stuff down the line, you have a very clear picture of how this fits into your organization, and you'll be able to better evaluate, hey, is this something that's worth my time versus not? Because I already know like what my strategy is here. So really what it's going to do is it's going to help you save any like going down the wrong path or any kind of like landmine objective that could be really costly down the road. That's the biggest advantage of the assessment, and that's why we always like to start there with clients. In terms of cost, we usually quote that, depending on the size of the organization, between 5 to 15 grand. Really, what that is based off of is based on like what's the level of depth that you want to do, right? Because we've had some customers say, hey, we want to do an assessment, but we want it to be 2 departments and a few people, right? That's a different, level of work than like, let's say this construction company that we did where it said, hey, we want to do 40 interviews, right? So it's more of a time and materials based kind of pricing that we use.
Okay. And with that, so real quick, Paco, sorry to interrupt you. With that, John, and how do you balance that historically? What does that look like for our customers on a return on an investment? If we're spending that kind of money, it seems exorbitant, but it's a very detailed, and I've seen your evaluations and assessments. It's the same thing we do on the IT side. It's imperative. What does that return on investment look like, and how quickly do they feel the impact if they say, okay, let's go, let's make the investment? And then what does that look like coming back to them?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the ROI, so usually the assessment, right, that usually takes us about 2 to 3 weeks in terms of timeline, just to be able to get time with everyone, right, to be able to evaluate everything. Usually we see the ROI usually in that next month after the assessment, because a very common problem that we see, the reason that we start with this assessment is that I know I want to use AI, but I have no idea what to do with it. And once you really get this roadmap, the way it's a playbook, right? And once you have this in your hands, then you can start going through and ripping through the use cases with confidence, because you know that you've done the due diligence up front to figure out what's the stuff, what are the quick wins that are actually worth my time? What are the objectives that I should be working towards? And so, we see that a lot, especially if you have a lot of these tools already, right? Like, let's say you've already given your people, let's say ChatGPT or Claude, but now you have the playbook on here's what we should do with them. That usually leads to dramatically faster results within the next month of saying, oh, wow, like my people are actually saving time. We're in this case, we're doing quoting and estimating much more quickly than we were before. So the biggest reason to do it's really 2 reasons to do the assessment. Number 1 is clarity. And then number 2 is in this like crazy world of AI, it kind of gives you your cheat sheet, if you will, of like, this is the stuff I should be working on versus like, how do I, which is hard in this space, how do I avoid the like shiny object syndrome, right? So it really helps you kind of stay clear on like, what should I work towards in terms of like, how is it going to align towards our business objectives?
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And obviously we've spoken on regards to those interested in leveraging AI in some way or shape or form in their organization. But I'd like to flip it into the conversation of those that are already using AI in their organization in some way, shape, or form. I'm curious, John, for your opinion, what separates a company from experimenting with AI than those that are actually scaling with it? Are those different perspectives, strategies, things of that nature? What have you seen kind of doing your IT assessments? We've gone into a organization that is working on AI, or they say that they're leveraging AI. What do you normally see?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the assessment, right, that's really for that first category of customer, right? Which is like, I know I want to be using this, but I have really no idea what to do. And sometimes we'll even do assessments for businesses, right, that are kind of in that experimentation phase, where that's, as we've done more assessments, let's say over the last 6 months, that's more and more common, right? Because businesses are starting to try this stuff.
Yep.
I think the biggest difference that we see between clients who are doing this at a high level versus clients that aren't is that it's usually 2 things. It's 1, they have some sort of internal resource who they've identified who knows the business really, really well and has the technical skill to execute. Right. And so that's the first thing. They have an AI champion who's able to do this stuff. And 2, they have they're already a very let's say highly functioning organization, right? So their processes are very dialed. They have very good SOPs. They're very efficient already. This kind of goes to your garbage in, garbage out. the higher performing the business is, we usually see that correlate with them being able to do AI well, right? So it's kind of that, larger thing. It's like, if you have a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of problems and a lot of duct tape in your business, AI is not going to be the silver bullet that's going to help you.
Yeah. Now, as you kind of mentioned, right? AI, we have this phrase in the industry for IT where we call it tool sprawl, where a lot of consultants are trying to find the right tools in supporting and running their businesses. And now we've gotten to a point where AI sprawl, right? There's so many AI models, cloud hosted on your own. How do you avoid siloed AI tools in an organization and build more of a cohesive AI strategy across that business? And how have you guided some of those businesses? Because again, A, we have to discover, are they using it? B, if they're using it, which departments are using what? And then oftentimes it's not the same one that was either probably allowed or in their AI use policy from their employee handbook. So I'm curious as to your opinion in regards to, how do you try to avoid those siloed AI tools?
Yeah. So shadow AI is a big problem, right? We're seeing that because, your employees and your team members, right? Like, if you aren't giving them capable tools at work, you can bet that they're going to be using stuff outside of work. So one of the things we like to say is your first AI tool is as much a policy as it is a tool that they're using, right? And so in terms of getting it cohesive, the reality today, right? We see this a lot, right? Like, I'll give an example of businesses on the Microsoft stack. They have Copilot, but then they also have, let's say, a Claude subscription for their employees. So usually what we see with this is it's less about aligning to one tool or the other. We're very big on being tool agnostic. I think what happened last week, with this whole Fable model from Anthropic is a great kind of microcosm of why you need to be tool agnostic, because with these closed source labs, like, anything can happen and you can't be dependent on that to run your business. So we try to emphasize that's why training and building the generalist skills are important, so that if you lose one tool, you can swap to something else. In terms of being cohesive, I think it's saying, like, what are the most important systems that we use, and then picking one or two tools that are going to be able to integrate with that, right? So, like, in the example of, okay, maybe we're a Microsoft house, we're going to use Copilot for the CRM, and then we're going to have Claude as our tool for doing, like, documents and emails. I think it's kind of segmenting by use case. That seems to be the best, instead of doing just, hey, one tool for everything, because then, right, as I said, it's important to be agnostic, but in most organizations, right, it's usually a little bit messier, and that's kind of the faster path to progress. Or, like, what are the tools, given your technology constraints, that we can plug in the most easily to actually work for you?
Gotcha. Chris, unless you have any other additional questions, I have one last one for John before we sign off here.
No, go ahead. Thanks.
Everyone hears about AI. I think we're in the time of the industry where people are actually finding tangible results, and they are now able to either engage with someone like yourself or through us on understanding how to leverage AI. But I think we're still in a position where there are those that, from leadership or high up, that know this needs to be implemented, but they're trying to understand, in my opinion, or my question to you is regards to your opinion, what are the realistic expectations of ROI in the first year of implementing AI for a business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because, and this kind of goes back to the last 6 months. I think in the last, let's say from January through December of last year, I think most of what the results you're seeing are these occasional slam dunks, but then a kind of a lot of, like, marginal hill climbing, right? Of, like, whereas now, as I said, I think you're really leaving productivity gains on the table. Like, I think it's not unrealistic to say, among your people, for example, who are doing a lot of, like, work on the computer, they're probably leaving 10 to 20 hours a week of productivity on the table because they're doing stuff manually, right? Or as an organization, in terms of ROI, I think for, like, let's say you roll out Claude to all of your employees and you're paying $100 a seat, monthly. I think at least a 2 or 3x minimum return on that is now realistic, right? I think the tools have gotten so good. They've gotten more expensive, but the capability has gone through the roof, right? I mentioned the HubSpot example. It's like, if you can now build your own CRM and you're saving $1,500 a month, on, your CRM versus $100 seat that you paid for someone to build that. Like, that's a huge return on the cost that you're spending on these tools. So I'm not gonna sit here and say, hey, like, you're gonna transform within a year and you're gonna be like triple your revenue. I don't think that that's realistic, but I think that there's a ton of opportunity to save a lot of time and be able to grow your top line, maybe at an extra 10 to 20%, just as a result of integrating these tools today.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, John, I appreciate you coming out here and speaking with everyone here as well. I know me and Chris enjoyed being able to talk to you again. Obviously, we are working with you in regards to our clients. And for those are watching this webinar, if you've registered, there'll be an email that'll be sent out on how to contact and how we can help you in your AI journey. If you are watching this on demand, just feel free to reach out to us in the show notes and in the YouTube description, and we will make sure to connect you and drive that AI journey. Because again, as John had mentioned, and Chris and myself, we're in this position now that we have to be a part of those conversations. We have to be able to implement these type of things, and sometimes we need a little help on the way, and we're here for you for that. So from myself, John, Chris here, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you on the next webinar of our MSP Owners Group series, which will be CIS controls for controllers. So for those that are watching or listening, if you happen to be a controller in your organization or running a financial practice, we'll be having our very own Lindsay Szynski, who is controller over our partner business, Summit Holdings. And we're going to go in on why CIS controls are important for you to maintain your cybersecurity risk and mitigating that as well. Until next time, we will see you. Have a great one.